In both sides of the arguments, we get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines at 11 o'clock. The Royal Navy serviceman who died when a Merlin helicopter ditched in the Channel has been named as Lieutenant Rodri Lation. The helicopter crashed off the coast of Dorset on Wednesday night during the training exercise with HMS Queen Elizabeth. An investigation into what caused the aircraft to ditch is ongoing. The police watchdog will probe the release of footage to the media of an incident at Manchester Airport. It comes after a mobile phone video clip of an officer kicking and appearing to stamp on the head of Fahir Ahmad went viral on social media as he and his brother Mohammed Ahmad were restrained by officers. Further footage obtained by the Manchester Evening News emerged days later, which showed the immediate lead-up to the incident on the 23rd of July. In other news, Boris Johnson has suggested Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper are to blame for the most recent deaths in the Channel after the government scrapped the Rwanda plan. It follows a tragic incident this week where 12 lost their lives when a boat capsized, the deadliest crossing this year. Former Prime Minister Mr Johnson says the government must act.
For Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper to admit that if you scrap a policy designed to save lives and you put nothing in its place, then you will be to blame.
It comes as Germany is considering using British-funded facilities in Rwanda to deport migrants entering the European Union. Berlin faces mounting pressure to curb illegal migration following last month's ISIS-linked stabbing at a festival. German officials think the EU should repurpose the asylum facilities which Britain set up, which were recently scrapped by Sir Keir Starmer's government. Now, the government says it has no plans to send prisoners to Estonia, addressing rumours on policies to ease overcrowded jails. It comes as the UK prison population hit a record high this morning, now reaching 88,521 inmates, 171 more than last week's peak. Downing Street insists that building more prisons remains a key priority, and a 10-year strategy will be published this autumn to ensure enough space for dangerous offenders. And in the US, a judge has ruled that Donald Trump's hush money sentencing will be delayed until after the November presidential election. New York Justice Juan Merchan granted the former president's wish to push back his sentencing. It's after Trump's lawyers accused state prosecutors and the court of election interference with less than 60 days until Election Day. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Hello and welcome to Headliners, a look through the next day's newspapers with three genre-defining comedians. I'm not sure what the genre is. I'm Leo Curse, and tonight I'm joined by the Headliners OGs. We've got Josh Howie.
Physical comedy.
And Nick Dixon.
Cerebral comedy.
I'm just elite cerebral. Well, it's good to see you both. How are you both doing?
Good, thanks, Lee. Yeah, the three of us here.
Yeah.
Well, who knew?
Just like 2022 all over again.
Just like the good old days.
Somehow still not sacked. Incredible.
Still here.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's only a matter of weeks. Nick, anyway, let's have a look at Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph leads with, England manager says, I won't sing our anthem. How about get another job then? The Daily Mail has, none of our attack submarines are at sea. The Eye has, game-changer weight loss pills on way in major boost to NHS. The Times has, rich ready to quit UK over budget tax threat. The Daily Mirror leads with, I warned bosses someone would die. I think that's Top Gear. And finally, the Daily Star has, you okay, Gandalf? And those were your front pages. And let's have a closer look at those front pages, starting with the Telegraph, Josh. What have we
Yeah,
got?
England manager, I won't sing our anthem. But it's a bit weird. If he'd said, like, I won't sing the British national anthem, or what is it, English national anthem? Well, yeah, the English national anthem.
English, yeah.
I'd go, all right, but he was born in Birmingham, he grew up in Ireland, he's played for Republic of Ireland.
Yeah.
So I can sort of understand.
Because there's an ancestral link that lets you play. I think if your grandparents or parents came from a country, you can play for that country.
So he did. But the fact says, I don't know if that's a direct quote, I won't sing our anthem. Like, if it's like our, then I think if it's his anthem as well, then he should sing. His excuse is that he needs to focus. Yeah. And I think, no, I think he should be distracted and we should lose and he should sing the national anthem. That's more important.
But also, I mean, Nick, you're a football man, and singing the anthem doesn't exactly draw a lot of focus from the game. I'm sure you could set aside a minute to sing the national anthem.
Especially because we only sing the first bit. I mean, it's not like we're making them sing confound their politics, frustrate their knavish tricks, which we should, by the way. All the verses
those
should
genuine
be in.
lyrics?
Those are genuine lyrics from the extended version,
That's amazing. It's so relevant in 2024.
I know, bring it back.
I think if you sing it right, you should be distracted. Like, you should be utterly focused on the national anthem. Like, when you sing God Save Our King, like, you should mean it with the totality of your being.
Well, Rooney didn't used to sing it at first. Gary Neville didn't sing it. He tried the same thing about focus, but it doesn't really wash. If you are the England manager, I know there's this conflict. He played for Ireland. I do understand that. But you've got to sing the national anthem if you're the England manager. This is not controversial.
It's like, what are the words, like, blah, 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 and then you come in at the end like, oh, this is the bit I know.
Yeah, you just mouth along like John Redwood did.
Do you actually know the English national anthem, John?
Blah, blah. God save our glorious King.
Israel.
Are you saying some sort of dual... Some dual loyalty trope?
A two-state solution.
I was thinking,
I'll just start doing that at TikTok.
I think you kind of do that.
I do get very emotional when I've sung the Israeli national anthem. It's beautiful.
Oh, they've got one.
What's their football team like, though? You don't hear about them much.
Oh, no. Don't push it too far.
Moving on, Nick, we've got something different in the Times.
Yes, Rich ready to quit UK over budget tax threat. So, I mean, it's nothing new, Leo. Starmer's going to tax the rich into oblivion, so they're off. I mean, this is a tale as old as time. And we could lose 9,500 millionaires, which would be the most of any country except China. And they're worried about the tax plans in the budget. Of course, they're worried about the non-doms inheritance tax, which will be applied to more stringently to non-doms. And high-end property is also facing a lot of uncertainty, not knowing in what ways Labour will... Are we allowed to say a word beginning with S, them? S-C... Is that how you... Can you say that? It's the kind of word Lewis Shaver says all the time. The way that Labour will do them...
do them. Have sex with them.
Well, not really. No.
SC.
S-C-R.
Screw.
Yeah, but like
this is a really mild word.
Anyway, we are
really
really scared of Ofcom.
Part of the...
How can we kept our jobs this long? I think by not saying any words.
It's not just the fact that taxes are going up. It's the fact that if you're rich, you're not using any of the services that your taxes pay for. You're not using the NHS anymore because we've got, so much private medical care now. People have sort of drifted into the private sector there. And also there's no national unity because we've had massive levels of immigration. We've had national spirit suppressed. I think, 20 years ago, people might have felt, I'm helping out my brothers, my fellow Englishmen or Scottishmen, if you're like me.
Well, my theory might be slightly different in that just maybe the country's a bit more rubbish.
Yeah.
In that they're going... We had more to stick around for. We had better, so for me, it's like invest that money in the arts. That was the whole point. We're a cultural happening hub. We're Britain, and we've sort of lost that sheen a little bit. And if we bring that's why the rich people want to be here and they don't want to be in all these other places because they're rubbish.
I don't think people are drawn here by culture. I think, you've got culture all around the world. Taylor Swift goes to every city.
No, but like Dubai...
Yeah, Dubai. Dubai's got so much. They've got a comedy club there.
Yeah, exactly. One comedy club where you can't say anything.
Yeah. No, you can say more in Dubai than you can in London.
Things have changed now. Well, that's what I'm saying. Bring it back where we've got have the comedy unleashed, of course.
Leo's right, though. Even lefty papers like the New York Times admitted that in a multicultural society, trust goes down. Things like giving blood goes down, signing up for the army goes down. So that's the kind of thing you were alluding to.
Yeah, and also I think
rich people love giving blood and going in the army.
No, you're right. Rich people, they won't even have. You're saying they don't use public services. They won't even use the police anymore. It'll be high public, like private security, making the houses.
But they will use our culture, and they will partake in that.
I think you're overestimating how much people want to see caste reform. But I think as well as people leaving, the people who stay are going to look at tax minimisation as well. So I think even the people who aren't leaving, we're going to see a lower. The Laffer curve never lies. That's the curve that says if you raise taxes too high, you get less tax. So we'll see. Moving on, what have the I got in the cover, Josh?
Game changer weight loss pills on the way in major boost to the NHS. 8 anti-obesity drugs are undergoing the final stage test worldwide. And the reason this is a game changer for the NHS is because we spend about, I think it's $8 billion a year or something like that it costs the country overall, not just the NHS.
We could house migrants for 2 weeks on that.
Yeah, exactly. And also the good thing is, we could use overweight people to warm the elderly. Just stand around. Their body heat will be enough to
just put a wick in the top of them.
Yeah,
it'll burn.
Yeah. So that whatever the cost of these drugs are, I imagine it's more economically viable to put people on the drugs so they lose the weight, so it's not costing us a fortune. So that makes sense. There is a part of me that's kind of like, do you deserve to lose the weight? Is it cheating? You should, go through the hard part.
They haven't earned it. They won't get the moral character that comes with the weight loss.
Exactly, the ballooning up and down like my stomach.
The quick fix.
Yeah. So that would be my only.
But are we now at least admitting that being fat is bad? That's how I know, because the culture's been telling us for a long time it's amazing to be fat while working on revolutionary weight loss drugs.
Well, the thing is, a lot of the body positive influencers who are saying it's good to be fat is healthy, a lot of them are dead now. So the new ones that have come through have said, I want to make it to 35.
The new ones are thin.
Yeah.
I don't want a Ozempic.
We had miracle weight loss drugs when I was a kid. It was they were just called drugs.
Living in Scotland.
Moving on, finally, what insight does the Star have to share, Nick?
This is actually quite good for Star. It's You OK Gandalf, and it's about Sir Ian McKellen, saying that the Queen, late Queen, our beloved late Queen, was quite mad. And that is actually, it is quite rude. He's saying towards the end she was quite mad and quite rude. But his example of her being rude is that he said to her, she said to him, receiving some sort of lifetime award, "You've been doing this for an awfully long time." He said, "Not as long as you." She smiled and said back, "Does anyone still actually go to the theatre?" That's called banter. That's called funny banter. The Queen is funnier than you, Sir Ian, and that's your problem. And he did say elsewhere that as for Harry, he's probably not bright enough or doesn't have the right friends to really help himself. Mind you, he had the pick of all the pretty women in the world. I hope he's got the right one. Shots fired or staff fired.
He seems to be doing the Miriam Margolyes thing of he's got old, so now he can say what he wants.
Exactly. We've already reached that stage.
Do you think the king should have him beheaded?
No, I don't. Maybe take away his Sir whatever he is.
Put him in the tower.
Yeah, exactly.
But is Ian?
I mean, it's another story about the Queen being really funny. That's all. That was the nicest thing in the death. There was just all these people coming out with these great stories about her. She was witty. She was cool.
Well, thank God Ian McKellen wasn't there. He'd have ruined the week. Come up with some stories of her being mean to him. Anyway, that's the front pages dealt with. Stay with us to find out Starmer's illegal immigration plans, Kamala attacking JD Vance, and bad news for lazy accountants. See you in a moment.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Club Classique, previously known as Méthode Club Classique, is South Africa's answer to the famous French fizz.
They basically have to be made in South Africa and also by the traditional method. So it's exactly the same method as champagne, but is made in a different place. So they can't call it champagne because it's not made in Champagne, but it's very similar.
And on the other hand, in Prosecco, it all happens in a sort of great vat.
Yes,
doesn't it?
Yes.
Which is why Prosecco tastes different from other sparkling wines.
Prosecco will taste much more fruity because you don't have the thing called lees aging. Insert the wine with brioche, biscuity, toasty flavours and aromas, which makes it much more complex.
Here we've got a thing called Journey's End.
Yes.
And would you like to tell us, I've said that people didn't want to splash out on champers. They might want to go the Cap Classique route.
Yes.
What would they be saving? How much might that cost in a shop?
So this one here will cost you about £17. So it is considerably, I guess, better value for money than champagne.
But I'd also comment that it's probably a good deal cheaper than English sparkling wine, which is interesting.
Yes, that is correct.
Now, this
Dessert.
second one is
Yes.
called Kleiner Salzer.
It is, yes.
And you told me this is a little more expensive than the first one.
It is.
What price were we talking about here?
About 20.
About 20.
Yes.
Not vastly more.
No.
Are we going to taste £3 worth of improvement? Oh, and by the way, it went so beautifully with the cheese, just as you advised. Are South African sparkling wines, Cap Classique, are they pretty well available in English wine shops, British wine shops?
They are, yes. You can find them in all of the supermarkets. Graham Beck, and that's on offer at the moment, actually. That's $11.99 from Waitrose, which is exceptional value.
That is insane.
Yes, it is. And you can also, so I bought with me today, so this is a Pinot Noir only, so that's a rosé sparkling.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sounds like a great guy. Anyway, welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Saturday's newspapers with sex symbol humorist Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. We've got to stop letting Josh write the links. Kicking things off with Saturday's Daily Mail, revealing Hamas's torture plans. I'm starting to think Hamas aren't the nice guy lefties say they are.
It's shocking news. Everybody is very surprised what's happened here. Hamas's cruel plan for Israeli hostages is revealed on a secret document found on a computer belonging to the terror group's leader, including psychological torture. So this document was it was written supposedly in a couple of months old. It was found on Yahya Sinwar's computer that was discovered by the IDF.
He's now an MP in Birmingham, I believe.
Oh, yeah. And, on a policy to help Birmingham area and nothing to do with But so this basically shows how all these people are out, and they're going to be out tomorrow marching through various cities in the UK, calling for ceasefire. And Hamas have never had any intention of actually wanting a ceasefire, or that's not their aim. Their aim is to use the hostages and to use psychological torture to encourage the families to then put pressure on the Israeli government, and the world to then also put pressure on the Israeli government. So all they really want to do, Hamas, is to survive, to fight another day, to kill Jews another day. And this proves it, and yet people, of course, are not going to care, and they're just going to go, they really want ceasefire. No, they don't. They just want to kill Jews.
Now, Nick, we need some balance. So Josh says Hamas are bad.
Great guys. To say that, it's obviously, when I say it's obviously a funny joke, if you don't mind dark humour. But there's also people who believe that on October 7th. That woman from Navarra Media said it was a day of celebration. To me, that's so insane. It's obviously a joke. But some people are like, guys, hear them out.
Even professors at elite universities in America were cheering it on, saying it was. They were using the language that woke people use. All this, abolishing whiteness and decolonialism, and this is it. This is what they actually mean when they say decolonialism.
They take it very, very seriously. They've fully bought into the dogma. I know, and they've lost their humanity. It's very weird and disturbing. Yeah, it was horrible reading about the hostages, and apparently they forced them to criticise the Israeli government. But that can't be effective, and it was obviously someone's being coerced.
Yeah.
What's the point? Is it just pure humiliation? Is that the only point of that?
It's just to put the sort of to encourage the families out over there who, you can't imagine, to have their loved ones being held for nearly a year now, and then, as we saw last week, 6 of them just murdered at point-blank range.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrific, and it is to sow dissent. But it's a war of attrition. Israel has no choice but to go in and destroy Hamas, so it can't happen again. It's a war of defence. But I guess
there are voices in Israel who say that they need to engage with the Palestinians and make sure there isn't a culture and an environment that gives rise to barbarians like Hamas, because they were elected by the Palestinians.
Well, it's a problem where you're trying to. How do you make peace with people who it's literally in their educational system that Jews have horns and evil and what it's a systemic cultural issue of hatred towards Jews that needs to be sorted. Israel has offered peace many times. It's multiple times it's been turned down by the Palestinians. They don't want peace. And we in the West, or useful idiots in the West, sort of think, you can't have... They don't have the same mentality. They are Islamic fundamentalists. That's what Hamas are. They don't care. They actually want their civilians to be murdered and killed, whatever. And that's why they put their weapons in... It's maddening. It's maddening.
Well, give it about 2 weeks before Labour brings them over here. Moving on to Saturday's Telegraph next, and there's pressure on Keir Starmer to end arms sales to Israel and start arming Hamas instead, Josh.
Oh, yeah, more. Great. Woohoo! Double time. So, pro-Palestinian protesters to target Labour conference. We've got Labour conference coming up in a couple of weeks. It's going to be in Liverpool. That is sort of ground central for a lot of anti-Semites. It's a great city, great comedy clubs, but there's a lot of anti-Semites around there as well. And, and they're going to be doing some big protests. As we saw last week, Labour have sort of turned down about 30. I'm slightly distracted because Nick's looking at photos of himself.
No, I was just checking. I was checking something about the broadcast. Josh shouldn't have mentioned it.
Sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned it. It was very...
You shouldn't have mentioned it. To be honest, if you're looking at someone on your phone, it could have been worse.
Yeah. He's watching the show.
It was tractor porn.
So Lammy, these 30 of these arms licences were rejected. And, of course, that's not going to be enough for the protesters. They want full-on...
Nick, I'll just bring you in here, because, Lammy did cut off, I think it's about 10% of the arms exports from the UK to Israel. But he said... the government's basically accepted that there's significant evidence that Israel may be using weapons in violation of international law. So if they said that, why would they only cut off 10%? I can sort of see why the protesters would say, well, if you're saying this, why stop at 10%?
And there is that absurdity that this sentence sums it up. The decision was condemned by supporters of Israel as well as pro-Palestinian supporters who said it did not go far enough. So it's completely impossible. And this is the situation Labour are in, where the left now... There is strange threat, aren't they, to the Starmer lot, the Corbyn lot. You've got rid of Corbyn, and you've just created a man hell-bent on revenge who's formed this independent alliance with these independent candidates who've nearly toppled some fairly major Labour MPs. Yeah. So they just have this impossible, strange situation where we've got a weird position where the rhetoric is... Israel is nominally our ally, but the rhetoric can't be sort of... It's not like Ukraine, Russia, where we're just so openly pro-Ukraine. Starmer's got this weird thing to kind of not sound too pro-Israel while still sending help to them, right? Because you don't want to alienate.
Well, by the way, it's sending help, but it's but it's not being given away. This help, this is being paid for by Israel, and also we.
It's not stereotypical at all, George.
No. But can I just say something? What you just said about what they found was, or whatever it was they said that these weapons could be at risk of being used in... So there's no evidence that weapons have been used to breach international law. They just said they could be used. Well, that's not enough. Well, any weapon could be used in that manner, but there is no evidence that it has breached international law.
I think this suggests a bigger issue for Britain, which is the fact that we've got a rapidly changing population. The Muslim population formed 33% of the population growth over the last 10 years, which, if you extrapolate that over a decade or two, that's looking like it's already tilting the electoral landscape, and we're seeing some demographics in the UK voting entirely along sectarian lines.
And that's what you have. You have the alliance between the far left types and basically certain specific immigrant interest groups voting in their own interest, voting about foreign conflicts. And I just think the left, the sort of so-called sort of Starmer left, are to blame because the sort of liberal managerial left, or a liberal managerial elite have played along with the woke left for a long time, and now it's finally biting them on issues like this. That's what
and I just want to say that, you know, when it's talked about sectarian, like in their own interests, it's got nothing to do with their own interests. It's got nothing to do with what's broadly a Pakistani, British. What's that got to do with Gaza? It's like
it's the religion, and it's
well, no, it's a religion. So it's an ideology. But the
Yeah.
point is that it's not like this war has been fought in Pakistan and it's Pakistani Muslims or
give it a few years. Moving on to the Daily Mail or Saturday's Mail, Nick, with bad news from remote workers at PwC. They're going to be the subject of the next audit.
Yeah, it's accountancy giants PwC will track workers' locations and crack down on office attendance, as staff are told they must be at their desk 3 days a week. So on one hand, that's absurd because it's like, yeah, that's your job. On the other hand, of course, I'm not particularly comfortable with them tracking their locations, which sounds awful to me.
Very Black Mirror.
Yeah. There is a certain sort of irony in that the kind of managerial tyranny that allowed the lockdowns is the same kind of ethos that will now be used to track people. But it's the same reason they got used to working from home in the first place. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of giveth and it taketh away. They brought in these lockdowns, which were complete absurd overreach anyway. Everyone got used to working from home, so we're not going to go back to work. It's like, well, now we're going to continue to use our sort of technocratic means to force you to come back to your desk. So the whole thing's bizarre and disturbing. And they have to make these weird arguments that are basically for going to work. So they've now restricted staff from taking a half day on Friday, which was a pandemic perk, they call it, which has taken 4 years to get rid of. And the person here says it being there basically provides a better client experience and learning environment for staff. They're basically saying, come to work because it's better for getting work done. But it's weird you have to make the case for it again.
But Josh, shouldn't they look at measuring output instead of... Because I think there's a real problem in British business, certainly when I worked in it, of presenteeism, of just going into the office, wearing a suit, looking like you know what you're doing, like I'm doing now.
Yeah, exactly. We're sort of half here. You're 100% right, because there are certain jobs if it is about selling or there's an argument if it's in terms of generating business where being in a group environment would help and making contacts and whatnot. If it's accountancy and they literally just have spreadsheets and it's just about how much of the data do they work through, then you don't have to be in work. It's not about dealing with clients face-to-face if it's just emails. So in that case, they should stay at home.
Measure output instead. Moving on, we've got The Independent now, which is Kamala Harris attacking JD Vance. But is she being fair, Josh?
Indeed. Harris rebukes JD Vance for calling school shootings a fact of life in response to deadly Georgia attack. I think she is being fair. He's trying to say afterwards, no, I didn't say that. But it seems to me that he did sort of say that it's...
Well, did he? Nick, did he? Because reading this, it doesn't sound like he said it like that.
That's
incredible. Okay, what you say?
Even for Josh, that is shocking.
Okay, I didn't see him. So all I'm reading is from here. I never saw the actual clip. You say it's about his intonation or something? Because to hear it looks like...
No.
He said, well... It's in the quote here, it says, I don't like that this is a fact of life, but if you're a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realise school's a soft target. He even goes further in the clip. He says, it's horrible, it's evil, I don't like this as a fact. He's saying he hates the fact that there are school shootings.
She never said that he said that he liked it.
But he hates that they're weak security so that people can use it and they can sort of become famous in a very dark way and there's not any security there. So when she says, oh, the way it's kind of like the fine people hoax from Trump, the fine people on both sides. It's worse than that. He's obviously, he's saying, I hate the fact there's school shootings, but the security is too soft. And then her response to this saying, we have to think how to make this less common. You know, it's not just a fact of life. She's saying school shootings are not just a fact of life. But he's saying they are currently horribly a fact of life.
No, but he's saying they are a fact of life because he's basically saying clearly...
The way she's spinning it is like, oh, they're just a fact of life. And he's not saying...
OK, but what he is saying is...
But she's not doing that.
He says here, clearly strict gun laws is not the thing that's going to solve this problem.
You're quite right.
Right.
Well, where's that clearly evidence coming from? Because they haven't inflicted...
You've got to think there's the guns provide... There's positives and benefits other than just school shootings.
OK, but the point is that clearly strict gun laws could well cut down on these gun.
I mean, possibly they could do more around, restricting them to people who've been convicted or to. But I mean, it's a slippery slope. I mean, why do you think we're handing out guns to civilians in Ukraine? Sometimes people need guns.
That's a war that they're fighting.
Okay. Have you noticed the American government? I mean, the only thing that stops America from descending into the anarcho tyranny of Europe.
A lot of times, people like National Rifle Association members or whatever do take down these shooters. They're obviously legal gun owners. That's a massive debate. Of course, the American right is in favour of the Second Amendment, and of course they're not going to say banning guns is a solution. They're going to say arming teachers, for example, or upping security, which is what he's saying. That's one thing, is the general argument. Then there's is Kamala Harris misusing what he said and misrepresenting it? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Well, he's saying it here. She's saying it's a fact of life, because he's been saying let's not.
She's spinning it and trying to say it shouldn't have to be a fact of life. He's saying it's horrible.
Well, this is misinformation. This is exactly the kind of misinformation, the fake news that the Democrats said they're going to clamp down on. So I look forward to them putting themselves in jail. Anyway, we're at the halfway point. Stay with us to find out what happened to that Labour politician who called for right-wing throats to be cut, and to not find out how much the government is paying on luxury flats for illegal immigrants. See you in a couple of minutes.
Hello, good evening. It's been a pretty soggy day for many southern areas, but across the north and west it's been very warm and sunny, and that theme is set to continue as we head into the weekend, as further heavy rain will arrive as a result of low pressure swirling around to the south of the UK. An easterly wind, though, will continue to bring in some low cloud to north and eastern areas, so some high and low cloud still to come once again tonight across eastern areas of the north. In the north and west, though, another dry and clear evening. Now, the heavy rain will push into parts of South Wales, northern areas of Devon as well overnight, but it should tend to fade away as we head into the morning just for a time. So it will be a cloudy but mild start to the day for most of us. Some sunshine around, however, particularly across northern areas. It's particularly parts of the Highlands down towards the central belt where we will see the best of the sunshine first thing, as well as southwestern areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland. Plenty of warm sunshine temperatures already in the mid-teens at first thing. Another warm day to come for parts of northwestern England. A cloudier day, though, for parts of Wales and the Midlands. We've got the remnants of tonight's wet weather lingering in these areas first thing tomorrow, and that will probably develop into heavier showers, potentially some thundery downpours after lunchtime on Saturday. And across the south, it will be a slightly drier day, actually, but there is a risk of showers that will increase as the day goes on, as those showers push up from the near continent. So in any sunshine, it's feeling slightly warmer across the south, but still a pretty cool day for many southern and central areas. Very warm in the north and west. A more widely wet day to come on Sunday. Outbreaks of potentially torrential rainfall across much of England and Wales. It will come and go, but it could bring further disruption to travel and delays on the road. But in the north and west, it stays dry for now. However, from Monday, we return to a northwesterly wind, which brings in much cooler air. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and we're getting straight into Saturday's Express. Nick, remember that Labour councillor caught on camera saying some naughty things? He says he didn't say them.
Allegedly saying some things, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing case, I think, so we have to be careful. It's suspended Labour councillor Ricky Jones denies calling for far right to have throats cut. And the grounds that he's pled not guilty to encouraging violent disorder on the grounds that he accepted the words had been spoken, but denied knowing the offence of violent disorder would be committed. So I suppose he's denying that it was any kind of direct incitement, I guess.
Well, that's the way it works in this country, is that you're allowed to break laws if you don't know that law exists.
You've got to stay stupid.
Yeah. That was a joke, by
That's
the way.
ideal for lefties. Then. Lefties can't commit any crimes. Too dumb.
Yeah, I mean, that does seem... His defence barrister said that he accepted the words had been spoken, but denied knowing the offence of violent disorder would be committed. So he genuinely thinks you can say words like that?
No, as long as you're referring to right-wing people, you're allowed to say it.
So if you can dehumanise a group of a part of the population...
That you disagree with, then it's fine.
I'm not saying any of this. I don't want to influence anything or be... This is all these guys. But I do want to say... I'll say one general point. The fact that he pled not guilty is interesting because we've seen so many people who've said things about the riots, tweeted misguided things, posted misguided things, and they've all pled guilty and they've all been packaged off to jail. And people keep saying, why are they pleading guilty? And a lot of it seems to be because they've been told it will get processed quicker and they'll actually come out quicker than if they plead not guilty.
Because they're being held on remand anyway, so they want to be released.
But this person appears to have been given different advice because he's pled not guilty.
Well, this is the thing that I will say that's not necessarily related to the case directly, is that there's a lot of talk about two-tier policing, and I have used that phrase myself.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is, of course, this counters that narrative somewhat because here it is someone from the different political aisle saying something, and he was immediately arrested and dealt with. So
but there's two obvious comebacks. One is that he was on camera saying it, so it's very hard to do anything. And two, he's already pled not guilty, which already suggests perhaps a different legal approach.
It's not like Keir Starmer went into a cell and went, just say you're not guilty, we'll leave it.
Well,
we don't know.
Why is it? I'm not saying that happened, but why is it? I'm just asking the question. I'm asking the question. Why is he pled not guilty when so many people have pled guilty when it seemed not in their best interest?
Yeah, we've seen people get years for things like farting near a police horse or tweeting a picture of their lunch. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and those are facts, those two. Yeah. We want to stick to the facts here.
Yeah. So we'll see.
OK, well, moving on, Josh, we've got the Telegraph now, and Labour are giving asylum seekers luxury flats with flat-screen TVs and satellite television, but they won't tell us how much it costs.
They deserve it. They deserve it. They need. Who knows? They could be watching.
It's been a hard trip.
As long as the only thing they can watch is GB News, then I think it's like money well spent. Cost of furnishing asylum seeker flats too sensitive to be released, says Watchdog. So not only do we have this, possibly huge amount of money. Flat screen TVs are still quite expensive, aren't they? Being spent. We're told that we're so sort of, as a country, can't be trusted to not riot, is the gist of it, that information has to be kept from the public. Because even though it's in our interests, we might freak out.
I mean, surely the fact, Nick, that it's sensitive is the reason it should be released.
I was going to say, it's worked so well, hasn't it? We saw with the Southport, it works so well covering up the guy's name. It works so well every time you say a man has done a thing. That fools everyone. It worked so well when the grooming gangs were suppressed deliberately, seemingly, because they were worried about racial sensitivities. That didn't lead to any kind of deep resentment in the country. Or even when you say that an obvious man is a woman, suddenly these female paedophiles, and lo and behold, we see a picture, it's a man who's claiming to be a woman, who's transitioned yesterday. These are all absurdities. The regime is absolutely committed to perception management, even when it doesn't work. It doesn't appear to work in any way, yet for some reason they carry on doing it, maybe just to purely demoralise us, but it doesn't work ever, as far as I can see, but they keep doing it.
Well, I think it does work a bit because so many people just follow they believe what they read in The Guardian, and they just believe what the government says. So if the government says, oh, we can't tell you what we spent on illegal immigrants, so they'll just say, OK, well, they can't tell us, so it can't be bad.
Don't you think the deep unrest recently shows that it's just not working anymore?
No, well, that's what I was going to say. I think that actually it is people... There's been too many incidents now, and it's across too many issues for people to buy it now, to see that there's been an alignment between the media, between the government of the day. Remember, a lot of it's been under the Tory government as well. And people aren't buying it anymore. And it is interesting to see people waking up to this. And it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen next. The big thing, of course, is that the government has this information about crimes committed and people's country of origin. And in terms of sexual crime stuff. And that information is out there. People have been trying to get it by freedom of information, and they've been holding it back.
Wow, because we've seen in Germany and other European countries that is sometimes really shocking. I think a German politician got into trouble for discovering that I think Afghan origin men were 40 times more likely to commit sexual offences, and she shared that and got banged up in Germany because they're even worse than the UK. We've got more Telegraph now, and a white ambulance driver, that's the colour of him, not the ambulance, accused of racism, has won his tribunal, which sounds more like a blasphemy trial, Nick.
Although it probably was also the colour of the ambulance. If you look at most of them, they're bits of green. So ambulance manager suspended for systemic racism comment was discriminated against. Ricky Garrett has been awarded £3,750 in compensation after suing the London ambulance service. And the case basically was following George Floyd, the very unfortunate overdose of a criminal in another country. We all went a bit mental and brought in all these... What?
OK, I'm not... We should also say there were other factors as well. I know you're going to say about the police, you know... Oh. But there was someone's knee on his neck.
Yeah, but he was saying he couldn't breathe before he even hit the ground, and forensics have showed that he probably wasn't murdered. Probably. But hey, that's a whole other topic.
He'd only taken enough fentanyl to kill a regular person.
Yeah, his blood pressure was higher than Lewis's, that's all I'm saying. But the point is, yes, OK, it was a horrible incident. It was very unfortunate. And he was trying to turn his life around. I've watched the documentary. But after that, people went a bit mad around the world and said we've got to now bring in absurd unconscious bias trainings and all these kind of things. And this man here, Ricky Garrett, was a victim of this. Whereas his view was very much that systemic racism doesn't exist because he had a sort of colourblind, meritocratic view, the kind of view we grew up with in the 90s, a kind of classic liberal view. And the judge agreed. The judge quotes Martin Luther King and says, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's consistent. Of course, you wouldn't believe in critical race theory type beliefs when you believe in this meritocracy, so thus you were correct. Of course, the guy's actually wrong because systemic racism does exist in this country. It's against white people, and this actual case is another example of that. This is a rare case where, OK, you've actually won, but he still was under all sorts of pressure at work, got in all sorts of trouble at work. Yeah. We see this constantly. White people they don't get jobs, they get attacked, they get told to do unconscious bias training. This is systemic racism. Spiked mocked me for saying that, but it seems to me clearly true.
Yeah, well, you only need to watch an ad break. The only time you see a white person is when it's for gambling or something.
Herpes, I saw one, and euthanasia in Canada. Right. If you want to kill yourself, basically.
But these are things that white people are particularly good at.
Yeah.
What, herpes and euthanasia?
These are our skills. There is a disturbing article, but also, for me, one of the disturbing... The member of staff who overheard a conversation reported the comments to bosses. Yeah. And that was the kind of time... I know, that's kind of time. And it should be pointed out that Mr. Garrett, who has a partner and 3 children who are all mixed race...
but you shouldn't have to have
to say that anyway.
Children to get out of a.
I know, but the idea that he should be able to but he didn't. But it's an extra point.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't based on the actual thing. But yes, of course, we all grew up at a time where Martin Luther King. It was about the content of character and whatnot, and it's incredible what he had to go through. In terms of being suspended, and he had to sort of write essays and have training.
It's an incredible development. You're not allowed the liberal view anymore. You actually have to have the leftist, extremist, very recent woke view. Yeah. Otherwise, you'll be persecuted. It's just fascinating how we've reached that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, it's The Guardian, and health and safety killjoys want to put cigarette-style warnings on food. Is it time to start vaping food instead, Josh?
Possibly, if that makes me thinner. Hard-hitting warning labels should be on everyday food, says campaigners. This is the British Heart Foundation. There's a bunch of stuff here, also including new taxes on salty products and junk food sponsorship of sport being banned. And again, we sort of talked about this in an earlier story about the problems of obesity. It is a big problem. We are addicted to sugar and salts and all of this. It's having a huge detrimental impact on people's lives, but also our finances. I want to be like, oh, look, people should be trusted stuff, but we have an issue.
People should.
Well, I don't think we should.
Because look, Nick, they say overall 39,000 people in England died before their 75th birthday in 2022, which is the highest number since 2008. Maybe we should put warnings on vaccines.
Yeah, and of course, in modern Britain, there's worse things than dying, because the country's so bad. So that's an angle you weren't expecting. Seriously, though, yes, at least, as I said before, they've admitted being fat's bad, so that's a start. I do agree this thing about this level of salt and sugar. I can't remember what it's called. It's not the uncanny valley, but it's something like that. There's this level where it tricks your body into never being satiated.
Yeah. And because you never get those combinations in the wild.
Yeah,
you get honey, which is sugar, or you get fat, which is fat, but you never get ice cream. You never get that delicious ice cream.
Exactly. So that is questionable whether you should be able to have that. My concern is giving Starmer the green light to just go full... He's the wrong guy to give this to. He'll be like, you're only allowed to eat broccoli One piece of chocolate every 2 weeks. Can you imagine giving stuff? He's already such an authoritarian.
And we're going to tax
Give this
5,000%.
Yeah, he'll ban all nice food.
They said here
they
could save, in the next 10 years, if they implement this, they can save 11,000 lives. That sounds worth it to me.
Yeah.
Also, I want to lose weight, and I just don't have any willpower anymore.
Yeah.
We should ban you from eating chocolate.
I think quality of life should be counted as well as quantity of life. Anyway, we've got just the final section to go. After the break, we'll have Britain's biggest export and Russell Brand. They're two different stories. See you in a minute.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
A window cleaner is battling to prove he has the only portrait of William Shakespeare made in his lifetime.
Yes, so owner Stephen Wadlow has been trying to validate the painting for years. He's had it x-rayed, he's had it analysed by experts, he's had it scientifically dated back to 1595 when the playwright was 31 years old. If it is the Bard, it could be worth north of £200 million.
Steve, welcome to GB News. First of all, just explain how you came to have this painting in your possession.
It was sat there all my lifetime, sort of thing, while I was growing up, above the television in the corner. It was only back about 12 years ago that a visitor, she said, "Oh, I think it looks like William Shakespeare, or, I like your copy of William Shakespeare," and was shocked to see it was an original painting. So it was only then that I started researching, and the different institutions have helped with the x-rays and all the rest of it. But then, is it actually Shakespeare? Well, all the facial comparisons, technology, everything like that, all matches with the Droschau, which is the only known 2D image of Shakespeare. And who do you go to find that out?
There's a suggestion in the Sun's write-up of this story that you've been struggling to be heard in the academic world, the lofty art world. It's all a bit snooty. Yes. It's about who you know, and you're a tradesman.
Yes. That is definitely true in some avenues, but then I have to say, and it's lovely to be able to have this opportunity to say it, there's other people in that world that have been fabulous. It's taken a long time to sort of get listened to. We want the discussion out there because all the evidence that we've got indicates that this really should be discussed.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and we're straight into the Telegraph. And China is stopping Western families from adopting Chinese babies for a better life in the West, probably because they'll get a better life in China, Nick.
Yeah, so it's China bans foreigners, as they're calling it, from adopting its children. And, of course, something had to happen because they have this low birth rate. Many countries do, Japan, Korea, us, Italy, etc. And so they are doing a very Chinese thing, like, let's just tackle it in a sort of very straightforward, draconian way. Of course, that's what got them in a lot of trouble in the first place with the one-child policy. But now and they're talking about, obviously, the sorrow and the turmoil of the parents who are all ready to adopt these children. Now they suddenly can't. It's set for people who have blood relatives in China or only permitted to adopt stepchildren and children of blood relatives in China. Yeah. So a very strict new policy.
And they've built up relationships with these children, video calls. So yeah, it does seem.
China doesn't seem to care that much about people's feelings. I can't help but notice. So they're just like, boom, no more. But you see why they're doing it, because they're panicking about their birth rate, and they're not wrong to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, it's sort of a stereotype, and America, I think, adopts about half of these 160,000 kids over the last 20, 30 years. And yeah, it's heartbreaking for the families who are already in transition. But after that point, it's going to be like, no, we need to. And humans, we're going to be the ultimate commodity, our own nationalities.
I'm going to be a commodity with some value soon. That's good. Yeah. Saturday's Mirror with the urgent news that children can be a handful, Josh.
Yeah, most parents mentally or physically exhausted by the end of the school holidays, as you might note by my energy levels on this show. after 6 weeks actually spending time with my family. You've got to learn their names again. You've got to cook for them all day. You've got to sort of engage with them and play with them as you're doing work if you're not going away on holiday together. Even when you're on holiday, there's that famous Louis C.K. bit where it's like closing the door as he's packed all the kids in and all the back. That's his holiday as he walks around to his house. And that's what it's like, getting them back to school. Really, this advert, this article is just an advert to say, oh, you should go away and have some alone time now that you've got the kids back in school. But yes, it's a massive. The kids went back to school this week, and it was just like, it was a massive weight.
Yeah. So that's why Josh is exhausted. What's your excuse, Nick?
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's being so alone that it becomes a kind of grind in itself. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I respect Josh for being able to have that many kids, or, you know, just kids in general. I couldn't do it. I look at this and I go, how do people do it? People are talking about no mode, night on my own. My whole life is just the one long no mode, and that's how I like it. I couldn't cope with it. But I do know, just as a general side point, that intelligence is linked with not having children. Yeah. Statistically, that is true. Higher intelligence is linked to
that's just something you've
fewer
made
children.
up
It's
to make yourself feel better.
No, someone told me today, and I'm repeating it because it suits my agenda.
Okay. Well, we've got the Express next with Britain's biggest export. Is it bad vibes, Nick?
It's actually music. Proud Brits have decided the nation's greatest export, and it's not the royal family, it's music. And you go, OK, brilliant, I'm totally with you. We've got so much amazing music. Who are you citing? And it says superstars such as Coldplay, Adele and Ed Sheeran. I was like, what you could have cited so many. Adele is very talented. Yeah. But Ed Sheeran...
You don't like Ed Sheeran?
Well, he's a busker. He's not Kate Bush, is he? He's not like the Beatles. He's not... Yeah, we could list all these people. He's not any of those people. But yes, our music is amazing, and they're absolutely correct. It's just a pity they cited those examples. And apparently this was most likely to come from older generations' pride in music. I guess the boomers were very proud of the 60s era.
Yeah, I think music used to matter, Josh. I used to know who was the top 10, and now, you know, I couldn't tell you who's number one.
Your voice broke there.
I was 14 again.
Yeah. No, I'm totally out of the loop. But film and telly is the other thing. Computer games, interestingly, doesn't get a mention, but we have put some pretty iconic computer games out into the world.
True, and they had some good music on them as well, like Grand Theft Auto. But you know what? I don't know what's in the charts either, Leo, but I do know with confidence that it's the auto-generated muttering about degeneracy.
Yeah.
That auto-tuned sort of garbage rap.
Absolutely. Well, moving on, we've got the Telegraph now, Josh, and Kamala has U-turned on a plastic straw ban. Does she just work out what she drinks those 2 p.m. gin and tonics through?
That's what we all drink, isn't it? Yeah, Kamala Harris U-turns on the plastic straw ban. This is what the election in November is going to be decided upon, and rightly so, because paper straws suck. And she has figured it out with her crack team of political advisors. And this is what the Trump campaign was slamming into her of her love of paper straws. And she's done a U-turn. She's flip-flopped on this issue. Yeah. And just in time to save the election for her.
Yeah, Nick, it's kind of strange that this became a focal point for their battles in the electioneering. Something as you know, low-key.
You mean like the whole survival of the Western America is a bigger thing? Yeah,
I actually disagree with you. If you've tried to have a McDonald's strawberry milkshake with a paper straw, you would say that this is the fundamental crux of modern civilization.
The fundamental point, she says she's changed her mind. She doesn't have a mind. She doesn't have opinions. They just wheel her out, and she's probably an AI. Make her say the thing, now make her say the other thing. She has no opinion, she has no thoughts. She's just a non-person.
Maybe this is her thought. Maybe this is the one
This is the one thought, yeah.
Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Saturday's front pages. The Telegraph leads with England manager, I won't sing our national anthem. The Daily Mail has none of our attack submarines are at sea. The Eye has game-changer weight loss pills on way and major boost to NHS. The Times has rich ready to quit UK over budget tax threat. The Daily Mirror leads with I warned bosses someone would die. That's Top Gear. And finally, the Daily Star has You OK Gandalf, and those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. We're back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Steve and Alan hosting and Cressida and Nick panelisting. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, do stay tuned for breakfast. Till then.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. It's been a pretty soggy day for many southern areas, but across the north and west, it's been very warm and sunny, and that theme is set to continue as we head into the weekend. As further heavy rain will arrive as a result of low pressure swirling around to the south of the UK. An easterly wind, though, will continue to bring in some low cloud to north and eastern areas, so some high and low cloud still to come once again tonight across eastern areas of the north. In the north and west, though, another dry and clear evening. Now, the heavy rain will push into parts of South Wales, northern areas of Devon as well overnight, but it should tend to fade away as we head into the morning just for a time. So it will be a cloudy but mild start to the day for most of us. Some sunshine around, however, particularly across northern areas. It's particularly parts of the Highlands down towards the central belt where we will see the best of the sunshine first thing, as well as southwestern areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland. Plenty of warm sunshine temperatures already in the mid-teens at first thing. Another warm day to come for parts of northwestern England. A cloudier day, though, for parts of Wales and the Midlands. We've got the remnants of tonight's wet weather lingering in these areas first thing tomorrow, and that will probably develop into heavier showers, potentially some thundery downpours after lunchtime on Saturday. And across the south, it will be a slightly drier day, actually, but there is a risk of showers that will increase as the day goes on, as those showers push up from the near continent. So in any sunshine, it's feeling slightly warmer across the south, but still a pretty cool day for many southern and central areas. Very warm in the north and west. A more widely wet day to come on Sunday. Outbreaks of potentially torrential rainfall across much of England and Wales. It will come and go, but it could bring further disruption to travel and delays on the road. But in the north and west, it stays dry for now. However, from Monday, we return to a northwesterly wind, which brings in much cooler air. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
How would you like an extra £3,000 in your bank account each month for an entire year? Well, it could be yours with our £36,000 secret salary to be won. You'll get £36,000 in cash to do whatever you like with over the coming year. And the best news? It's totally tax-free, which means you'll get every penny to spend. For a chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. One entry costs £2.